Shalom Aleichem, good morning. It's good to be back. I want to dedicate this year for the Atzlach of Ben Zion Ben Dosa, him and his family. Our soldiers fighting, Mitzvah Hashem, they should come back home, healthy, alive. No damage, physical or emotional. Those who are kidnapped should come back to their families. Those who are wounded should be healed speedily. Mitzvah Hashem, we should know no more tzar, only simcha and nachas to all. The pasuk, I'm not going according to the order today in Parshas Vayera. Maybe there's a reason. Maybe there isn't. We'll see later. וגם אני שמעתי את נעקס בני ישראל אשר מצרים מעבידים אויסם. הקדוש ברוך הוא says, I hear כלל ישראל yelling, and therefore ואזכור es brisi. I will remember my covenant with כלל ישראל. There's a sefer called Koisi Revaya, and he has a beautiful explanation on what the Gemara says in Masechet Brochos. The Gemara darshans this pasuk in Masechet Brochos Dafei Amud Aleph. And the Gemara says, when one has Yisurim, he has afflictions, it's memarek kol gufo shel adam. It polishes, it cleans the entire body. So machloikes how it works, Rabbi Yochanan and Resh Lakish. And Rabbi Yochanan says, it's a kal v'chomer, from shen ve'ayin, a tooth and an eye of an Eved. Tooth and an eye is only one organ of one's body. And if the master takes out the tooth or an eye of his slave, the slave goes free. Says Rabbi Yochanan, kal v'chomer. If a tooth and an eye is only one organ and one goes free, his entire body goes free, how much more so Yisurim, that they affect the entire body, one goes free. In other words, it cleans the entire person, cleans him from his sins. That's Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Shimon ben Lakish says, no. It's nothing to do with the kal v'chomer. It says the word bris by melach. You should always have salt when you're putting a korban on the mizbeach. And it also says the word bris, ele divrei habris, regarding Yisurim. After all the klalos in the Torah, it says the word bris. So just like the bris, which is said in the melach, which melach is mematek es habasar, when you put some salt in the stew, it makes the meat delicious. So too, Yisurim, if bris applies to both these words, to salt and to Yisurim, so too Yisurim clean and fix the entire body. Great. Who cares what the source is? Lemaise, the Yisurim, memarek kol gufo shel adam. Yisurim cleans the person and he fixes him up. Who cares what the source is? What's the difference to you if it's a kal v'chomer from a tooth and an eye, or it says bris by melach, it says bris by basar? What's the difference? Lemaise, it works. You know Yisurim work. They come to clean us from our sins. It awakens us to do tshuva. We know Yisurim work. So who cares what the source is? What happens if the master, in fact, took out the tooth or an eye of his slave, but he didn't do it himself? He sent a shaliach. Does the slave go free? Nope. What's that? I'm sorry? Shliach shel adam kemoiso, regarding doing mitzvahs. And yet, Rashi says in Kiddushim, when you do it by yourself, mitzvah bo yoiser mi beshlucho, you get more sachar. So it's true, shliach en shliach ledvar avera. It's important to know, shlicho shel adam kemoiso works. When you send somebody to do the mitzvah for you, it works. You're yoitze. But the Kodesh Baruch Hu says, and why couldn't he do it by himself? So instead of giving him $1 million for the mitzvah, I'll give him only, don't know, work with the accounting department upstairs, maybe 750, maybe 800, I don't know how it works. But the lashon of Rashi is, you get schar tfei, you get more reward when you do it by yourself. But that's regarding mitzvahs. Lefum tzarag, the greater the effort, the greater the reward that you display, HaKadosh Baruch Hu rewards you accordingly. Great. But, the Gemara learns, if the master took out the tooth or the eye of the slave through somebody else, the slave does not go free. Which means, if we are going to use what Rabbi Yochanan taught us, if kal v'chomer, if from a tooth and an eye, one goes free, his entire body, how much more so if one gets Yisurim in the entire body? But that only works if one gets Yisurim and he looks up and says, I understand, it's all from you. But if someone steps on your foot and you look at him, why'd you do that? Can't you be more careful? In other words, you blame him and not look upstairs and say, Kodesh Baruch Hu, Chatasi avisi pashati. It's me. I understand. You had to send me this to fix me. If you blame the other person, it's as if HaKadosh Baruch Hu is sending you. He's the master, you're the slave. He's sending you the Yisurim through someone else. It's not going to do anything for you. Therefore, the Gemara had to resort to Rish Lakish's salt comparison to Yisurim. And therefore, if one puts salt in a stew, does it make a difference if you put it by yourself or you use a shaliach to do it? What's the difference? Salt works. Which means even if you're going to get Yisurim and you're going to say to the person, why'd you do this to me? Doesn't make a difference. It's still, according to Rish Lakish, it's still going to work and it's still going to clean you from all your sins. And therefore, it's so meduyak. The pasuk says that we started with, "Vegam ani shamati et na'akas bnei Yisrael." I heard Klal Yisrael yelling. What are they yelling? Asher Mitzrayim ma'avidim oisam, that the Egyptians are enslaving them. If we would go with Rabbi Yochanan's shita, we have a problem. Klal Yisrael are blaming the Egyptians instead of saying, Kodesh Baruch Hu, we understand we have to be slaves here in Egypt because we did something wrong. No! They're saying, the Egyptians are doing this to us. No, there's nothing to do with Kodesh Baruch Hu. That's not going to work according to Rabbi Yochanan. And therefore, Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Va'ezkor es brisi, I will remember my covenant. What covenant? What Rish Lakish taught us. Bris by Melach, bris by Yisurim. And then it works even if we'll continue to blame and accuse the Egyptians. There's nothing to do with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. We can't go with the drasha of Rabbi Yochanan. We had to go with the drasha of Rish Lakish. And therefore Kodesh Baruch Hu says, Va'ezkor es brisi, I'll remember my covenant, even if Chalila we're not going to realize it's all coming from Ibn Shalom.
So if someone does another Avera, he's not getting punished for that?
En Shaliach ledvar Avera.
No, but the person who sent the Shaliach to do an Avera, he doesn't get the punishment for what happened.
The Gemara asks, when you send a person, do me a favor, can you go and steal from this guy? Divrei harav v'divrei hatalmid mi shoymin. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told you not to steal. So the master told you to steal, you have to listen to him or you talk to HaKadosh Baruch Hu? The master is the Talmid of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're going to listen to the Rebbe or to the student? One has to listen to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. When a person says, a father says to his son, I want you to violate Shabbos. So he's not responsible because he's doing Kibbutz Dav. HaKadosh Baruch Hu told him, don't listen to your father and don't violate Shabbos. He has to listen to the Rebbe, to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or to his student, to the father. Both the Rebbe, both father and him have to listen to Kodesh Baruch Hu. So whoever sent you to do the Avera also has to listen to Kodesh Baruch Hu. Why am I suddenly listening to him? I have an accounting with the Kodesh Baruch Hu. And therefore, the Meshaleach, the sender, Lichoira, is free of charge. Not exactly so, obviously. But the actual sin himself, he didn't do. He's not responsible for it because we expect a person who is, above the age of Bar Mitzvah to know what he's allowed to and what he's not allowed to. He's supposed to say to the sender, sorry, can't do that. Want to say something? Pesach. How many cups do you drink?
4.
Why? What are the 4 Lashons of Geula? ולקחתי. לכן אמור לבני ישראל, אני השם, והוצאתי אתכם, I took you out, מתחת סבלוס מצרים, והצלתי אתכם מעבודתם, I saved you from being slaves there, וגאלתי אתכם בזרוע נטויה, ובשבטים גדולים, I took you, I redeemed you. Remarkable Chasam Sofer. Mamish unbelievable. There are no 4 Lashonos of Geula. How many are there? 5. There are 6. Says the Chasam Sofer, there's 6, and they are Ve'otzeti, Ve'itzalti, we all agree. Ve'ga'alti, Ve'lakachti, you guys said, that's 4. But what about Ve'heveti? I brought you to the land. And what about Ve'natati, and I will give you the land? That's 6. Ve'otzeti, each one stands alone. Ve'otzeti, from the difficulty of being slaves in Mitzrayim. Ve'itzalti, bichlal, to be subjected to them. You can be subjected, but they're nice to you. I took you out, you're not even slaves at all. Vega'alti, that's to see the revenge that you saw by the Egyptians. Ve'lakachti, that's Matan Torah, the selected day, Matan Torah in Har Sinai. Ve'heveti, Eretz Yisrael. Ve'natati, that we should be in Eretz Yisrael and we will never be slaves there again, like we were in Eretz Yisrael in the time of the second Beis HaMikdash. Says the Chasam Sofer, for the first 4, Chazal instituted the 4 cups of wine that we drink every Pesach. Because the first 4 were fulfilled. the second or the last two were not fulfilled yet. To come to Eretz Yisrael and to always be here without any of the yoke of any of the nations, it wasn't fulfilled yet. And he therefore says, maybe that's why in Parshas Bechukoisai, the word Yaakov is spelled Male, with a Vav. Rashi over there says that many times you see Eliyahu spelled Chaser. He's missing a Vav. Eliyah. What's the pasuk in the Navi? Eliyah HaNavi. Where's Eliyahu? Yaakov and Eliyahu had a little agreement between them. And Yaakov as if stole the Vav of Eliyahu. And he says, listen, when you come to announce the redemption, I'll give you back that Vav. So Rashi says, Parshas Bechukoisai, Perek Chavav, pasuk Ben Beis, over there. Why Vav? Vav alludes to 6. Vav is 6 in Gematria. That alludes to the 6 Lashonis of Geula that will ultimately be completely fulfilled. But then he doesn't stop there. Says the Chassam Sofer, and I think it could be le'asid lovo im soon speedily in our days we will drink 6 cups of wine on Pesach, corresponding to the 6 Lashonis of Geula.
Extra case.
What?
Extra case this year.
Extra what?
Case of wine. Extra case of wine.
But already now, Zrizin Magdim El Mitzvahs, Achonim. And if it doesn't work out, call the Chassam Sofer, this is what happens. Pillei Ploim, 6 Lashonis Geula, 6 cups. Vayikach Aaron is Elisheva Bas Aminadav, who was the sister of Achot Nachshon. Lo Leisha, he took her as a wife. Chazal learned from here by Abbas Daf Kuf Yud. One should check out the brother of the future Kala to find out if it's appropriate Kala. Where is this alluded to in the Psukim? Says Rabbeinu Achida. Chida. Eishes Chayil mi Yimtza. A woman of valor, who will find? Eishes Aleph. Chayil Ches. Mi Mem. Yimtza Yud. Rashi Tevos Achim. Check out the brothers of the future Korah and you'll see if it's suitable for you or not. The riddle of the day. The pasuk says, "Vayechazek Hashem es lev Paro." HaKadosh Baruch Hu hardened Paro's heart. Can it be that an inanimate object has a heart? 2 possible answers in the Torah. Can it be that a doimim, inanimate object, has a heart? 2 possible answers. Not everybody together.
The stone that gave the water.
The what?
The stone gave the water. The objects that do something.
So the stone must have a container of water. Who says it has a heart?
What's the last one?
The pasuk in our pasuk says, "Vayechazek Hashem, a slave Paro." He hardened his heart. Paro, we know has a heart. He's a human. But can it be that something which is not a human, inanimate object, doimim, has a heart? The answer is yes. Good. But can you give me sources? That's just saying yes. It just doesn't work. Yes or no. You have to back up some sources.
We sing that Meshach is relating to water, to sand, to...
Who says they have a heart? Maybe they have emotions, maybe they have legs and arms, I don't know. But who says they have a heart? And it's psukim.
The heart usually pumps the blood. And when Titus came to the Bet HaMikdash, he splashed the parochet and blood came out.
And that's a pasuk in the Torah? 2 psukim in the Torah, that's Giti Nun Zayin. I need psukim in the Torah. One of them we say every single day.
Okay, good question.
I hope. An hour ago in Shachis. Had everybody together. Parshas B'Shalach. Shir HaSayam. Uveruach apecha ne'er mumayim. Nitzvu kemo ne'ed nozlim. Kafu. Where? Where? In the love of the Yam? The deeps froze in the heart of the sea. Apparently the sea has a heart. Good. First answer. Second answer. In Chumash Dvarim. Parshas Vayischanon. Ve'ahar bo'er ba'esh. Ad lev ha-shamayim. Apparently the Shamayim have a lev. 2 possible answers. Pharaoh finally confesses. Baruch Hashem, he woke up and he realized he did something wrong. Vayishlach Paro vayikra leMoshe uleAaron, and he said to them, Vayomer aleihem, Chatasi apam. Made a mistake. Hashem hatzadik. Hashem is the righteous one. Ve'ani ve'ami harishayim. Look how Rasha confesses. Finally he confesses. Look what he says. Chatasi. Only apam. Only once. I only made a mistake once. Chatasi, only apam. And when it says, Hashem HaTzadik, Ve'ani ve'ami ha'reshaim, the Medrash says that's not what he said. The Medrash says that Paro said, listen, Chatati apam, I only made once I made a mistake. Hashem HaTzadik ve'ani. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Tzadik and I'm a Tzadik as well. Ve'ami ha'reshaim. My nations are Reshaim, nothing to do with me. Finally, when a Rasha confesses, look how he confesses. Oy ve'izmir, that's not how one should confess. Question. Ashkenazim say, Good Shabbos. Sfardim say, Shabbat Shalom. Why is that? Why can't the Sfardim say, Shabbat Tova? Or why can't the Ashkenazim say, have a peaceful Shabbos? Shabbos of peace, I don't know. Why Good Shabbos as opposed to Shabbat Shalom? Who has it right? Or who has it wrong? Or maybe they're both right, or maybe they're both wrong. But what is there a difference? Good Shabbos or Shabbat Shalom? We have to argue about something, right? Because we never argue. We finally found something to argue about. But it's not an argument. We wish each other, we bless each other with something good. Nobody, I never heard something, Shabbos? No! Should have Shabbat Shalom. I do know a Gabbai in a certain shul, he always finishes his announcement by saying, Good Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom. I guess he wants to be Yoitz and cover all shittas. Right. Okay, so we found something to argue about, Baruch Hashem, because, otherwise we don't find anything. Why is there a difference? Could be that the source comes from Parashas HaShavua. What's the connection? Makav Barad, hail. Paro asked, Ha'atiru el Hashem, go daven to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Let him remove this terrible thing from me. Moshe says it's here, sorry. Not here and not now. Ve'yomer elav Moshe, Ketzeiti et ha'ir efros Skapai el Hashem. When I leave town, that's when I'll be able to do it. Why not now? Torah is asking you to do now. Why not now? The Tosfos explain, the Baalei Tosfos explain. In this Makkah, the pasuk says, Hayareh Dvar Hashem, those who feared HaKadosh Baruch Hu, brought all their cattle into their homes. Their cattle was avodah zarah. Used to bow down to their animals, mishakenes. So it's as if you're going to daven in the city full of animals, which are avodah zarah, as if you're davening in the middle of a church. You're davening in a house of avodah zarah. Says Moshe Rabbeinu, I can't do that. I have to leave the town. The Riva says, Tremendous Chiddush, the Riva is one of Baalei Tosfos, and the Riva says Moshe Rabbeinu wanted to go to the field, out of town, to be able to see all the damage, so he'll be able to daven with more kavanah. Because when you see the impact of the plague, you'll be able to daven with much more kavanah. Great. But we see from Baalei Tosfos that you can't daven in a place which you're not allowed to daven. For example, a place which is full of avodah zarah. What's the connection to Shabbos and Shabbat Shalom? Ashkenazi predominantly lived in Christian countries. Do Christians have a problem with pigs? No, they eat them all the time. There's no problem. There are always pigs around. But the Gemara says in Bochos Daf Chafei Amud Aleph, Pi chazir ketzoya overes. The mouth of a chazir is like excrement, or feces. You can't daven in a place like that. So when you see a chazir, you can't daven. It's viewed as ketzoya overes. So Ashkenazim wouldn't be able to say Shabbat Shalom, because in Shabbos Daf Yud we learn Shalom is one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Can't say Hashem's name next to a chazir. So Ashkenazim were forced to say Good Shabbos. But since Sfardim lived in countries with Muslims, they don't hold of chazir, there were no chazirim around. Mimela, they're able to say Shalom, Hashem's name. Mimela, they stick with Shabbat Shalom. Ashkenazim were forced to go with Good Shabbos. Some explain. I don't know if it's true. Makes sense.
Isn't Shabbat also named Hashem?
No. The Zohar Kodesh says Shabbos is a name of a Talmid Chochem. Talmid Chochem is called Shabbos. Shabbos is a gift HaKadosh Baruch Hu gives us. But Shalom is one of the names of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Shalom Ikrei Shemoy. That's the language of the Gemara in Shabbos Daf Yud.
Like when the example they don't on some toilet papers, they won't write the word Shabbat.
Because you're bringing Hebrew letters into a bathroom.
The word Shabbat they won't write.
Who's they?
I don't know. Like,
I also don't know.
And on tissues, they won't write the word Shabbat.
I've seen tissues that do say kosher for Shabbos because they're not connected. I've seen them.
Is it only a problem saying the Kedusha holy names when there's a pig present? Like, for example, in this area, a lot of people have dogs or cats as pets in their
A dog or cat is not a problem. The language of the Gemara in Bochos Chafei Amud Aleph. Pi chazir ketzoya overes. The chazir is viewed as tzoya, not other animals.
Even if you're impure animals, even if you can't eat them, it's not a problem.
Yeah, it's not a problem. The chazir is a problem.
So that, in essence, does not apply anymore.
Yeah, but once you got used to for hundreds of years to say good Shabbos, so you stay with it. It's not a problem if you'll say Shabbat Shalom. It's not a problem at all. But I'm thinking this is probably where it stems from.
Who says, is this your opinion? Or
No, I once heard it. I think it's cute. I don't know if it's true, but it's cute.
But before davening, you cannot say Shabbat Shalom.
You can't say Shalom Aleichem or Shabbat Shalom, same thing. Not because it's Hashem's name.
No, Shabbat you allow.
Not because it's Hashem's name. You have a different problem. You can't greet your friend before you start the daven.
You have to say good Shabbos before it's finished.
The Gemara says Tzafra Tava. You say Boker Tov. You say good morning. You give him a kiss. You say hello. You wave.
Shabbos, good Shabbos is better.
You quickly say some brachos and then you're good to go and you can say whatever you want. On the way to shul.
Shabbos is also greeting before you pray.
This type of greeting you can.
Well, we have to say both. Erev Shabbos, we say the Shabbos. And the Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom.
You cover all bases. Like that gabbai. Like that gabbai.
You can say good morning.
Yeah. Makav Shchin. Moshe Rabbeinu and Aaron are instructed, K'chu lachem meloch ofnechem. Take yourselves handfuls of furnace soot. How is that going to help? These are 4 hands. Moshe has 2. Aaron has 2. And somehow you have to take some furnace soot and throw it out and it's going to cover the entire land. How? It's not enough. Says Reb Samson, Raphael Hirsch, it's not enough. But it's not up to you. You have to do what you can. You have to do the necessary shtadlus. When you do that, L'Shem Shamayim HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to finish for you. He brings a raya, for example, daughter of Paro. What's her name? Batya. That's not her name. In Divrei Hayamim Aleph, Perek Dalet Pasuk Yud Ches, we find the only time she is mentioned. Her real name is Bitya. Or Ashkenazi. Those from Good Shabbos are going to be Bisya. For some reason, I don't know why we decided to butcher her name and we're going to call her Batya. I don't know why. The real name is Bitya. That's what the Navi says. However, what she did last week is she reached for Moshe's basket, which wasn't shaykh because he's all the way over there. And somehow her arm was extended 60 amma. So why are you even extending your arm when you see it's not shaykh? It's so far away. What's shaykh? Because you have to do what you have to do. And when you do that, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to give you siyata d'ishmaya. So never despair. Never say, oh, it's too much. It's too much. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you just to do ishtadlus. When you do ishtadlus, HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to finish the job for you. Ratzon and ishtadlus. Do something. Show HaKadosh Baruch Hu you're interested. And HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to help you complete the job. Now we're going back to Makat Tzfardea. Frogs. In the Makat of Tzfardea, the Egyptians showed how foolish they really were. Because Chazal say one frog came out and the Egyptian took a stick and hit it. And as a result, 2 popped out. So the Egyptian got so angry and he hit it again. And now instead of 2, you have 4. And every time they did it, it multiplied. And then it covered the entire land. Don't you get it? After you did it once or twice or 3 times and you see it doesn't work, why do you continue? What are you doing? What's wrong with you? You see from here, when a person gets upset, he loses control and he does irrational things, which are counterproductive, which damage himself. And therefore, I want to tell you a maaseh about a husband who did something similar, lost control, and listen to what he did. There was a husband who told his wife, I don't trust your mother's cooking. I don't think it's kosher in that house. Her mother's cooking is 100% kosher. But this guy is Michigan. He says, I don't think she keeps kosher. She does all kinds of crazy things in the kitchen. I don't trust her. You are never allowed to bring any food from your mother's house. Never. He warned her. One Friday. What's that? One Friday in the winter, she was busy. Shabbos is really early, and she just didn't have time to prepare the cholent. Shabbos is very close. The husband already went to shul and she realized, we don't have cholent for the Shabbos. So she ran over to her mother's house and she took a pot of cholent and she comes back home. She puts it on the hot plate, on the plata. Good. The husband comes back from shul and he sees the plata. He says, wait a second, this pot is not ours. I know this pot. It's for your mother. This is your mother's pot. I told you never to bring food from her house. I don't think it's kosher. He got so upset. What did he do? He went to the fridge. He took a glass of milk and he poured it into the cholent, ensuring no one is going to eat it. The wife was so upset, she left him. She ran back to her mother's house and she said, I'm leaving him. I can't live with a person who committed 3 aveiros chamuros, deoraisa. I can't live with a person like that. What's the 3 aveiros chamuros that he committed? He cooked on Shabbos. What else? Basar bechalav. He cooked meat and dairy together. And what else? Baltashchis. Lashon hara is an ongoing thing. He always tells her that about his mother, her mother. This is something new. In one act, he did 3 things. 3 for the price of 1. 3 deoraisas. I'm sorry, I can't continue to live with a person who transgresses 3 averos deoraisas. Not shaykh. For Shalom Bayit, we have to bend our backwards and we have to, whatever we can. Boy say, is there any way that we can help this family and restore Shalom Bayit? Is it in fact true that he committed 3 averos from the Torah? Let's start with cooking on Shabbos. What did he do when he poured the milk inside? He wrecked the cholent. Nobody's allowed to eat it now. It became asur be'ana. So he wrecked it. What's the rule on Shabbos? Kol ha'mekalkelin pturin. It's not cooking. It's not cooking on Shabbos. It's wrecking. Va'ad HaKashrus doesn't recommend it. Don't try this at home. You're not allowed to do this. It's only a derabbanan. Deoraisa, he didn't cook on Shabbos. He wrecked the stew. If he wrecked the stew, don't tell me he cooked on Shabbos.
Can't we add the milk is pasteurized, so it's cooked, and some say in
According to some opinion, depends how you view pasteurization. Let's say we go with a more strict view, and pasteurization is not hot enough to be counted as cooking. You're cooking meat and milk. No, I'm not. I'm sorry. You're cooking on Shabbos. No, I'm not. I'm wrecking. Kol mekalkelin on Shabbos are pturim. If he would add another piece of meat, so then we'd be cooking. But here, it would be exempt from the Torah. There's a Shabbos Shuvas Rashi Besamim, Rabbi Ben Gurion, Rabbi HaKohen Gurion, Moshe HaKohen Gurion, and in Orach Chaim Simen Gimel, Ois Yud, he has a similar question, and he writes that what he created now is asur be'ana. If it's asur be'ana, it's mekalkel. Mekalkel and Shabbos is patur. Great. What about cooking? Basar bechalav together, meat and milk together. That don't tell me they didn't cook. Deoraisa. Is there a way? No bitul b'shishim. A nice hefty glass of milk, more than 1/60th. He's mikalkel as far as cooking on Shabbos. Great. But when you take meat and milk together, and the Torah says, Lo tevashel di b'chalev imo, don't cook them together. How can you tell me you didn't cook them? You just cooked them.
It was chicken.
It wasn't. The real deal. Franken. I don't know what they put there. Meat. You're going to be mechadish a tremendous chiddush here. Be careful. People may listen. We're not going to repeat. I'm afraid. You want to tell me when you pour milk into a cholent, which is boiling and cooking together, that's not considered basar b'chalav deoraisa? Yes. So how are we going to help this couple? Is there a way to help them? Deoraisa. No Shalom Bayit. Finish. Divorce. That's how you want to end it?
Maybe he needs to go to the doctor.
he needs to go to a doctor for sure, but what's going to help? Right now, she says, I can't live with a person who did 3 Averos Chamuros Fam Da Torah. Is there a way to reduce what he did and say, well, it's not really cooking meat and milk together? Is there a way to do that? What's that?
Temporary insanity.
Temporary insanity it means that he needs to go to that doctor that he's sending him to. But Lemaisa, the act was such that he cooked meat and milk together. Unless you're going to somehow tell me he didn't.
Is there such a thing as temporary insanity in Jewish religion?
Oh yes, of course. A person is not normal.
No, but temporarily.
Shoit is exempt from all the mitzvahs.
No, but temporarily.
Sure. The Gemara uses the language, itim chalim, itim bai. Sometimes he's not here, sometimes he is. When he's not here, he's exempt from mitzvahs. Some elderly people have this. Some points in their life, and they lose it, and then they come back. They lose it, and they come back. And when they lose it, they're exempt from all mitzvahs. And when they come back, they're chayiv in all the mitzvahs, of course.
I wonder if the machshava, I mean, he didn't have an intention to cook. He wanted just to spoil the thing, and the thing was cooking on.
That's regarding melachos of Shabbos. We already removed the melacha of Shabbos, and we said it was mekalkel. You're right. Melachos machshavos asatorah, he didn't want to. Great, but I'm asking a new question. The issue of cooking meat and milk together, which has nothing to do with Meleches Machshavos, it applies on a Tuesday as well. When you take meat and milk together and you put them in a pot and they're cooking, you're cooking. Who needs Meleches Machshavos? It's not Shabbos.
He didn't put it on the fire. He didn't turn on the cooker.
But Lemaise, right now it's being cooked together. I don't need the Meleches Machshavos because I'm not looking at a Shabbos per se. I'm looking at the fact that meat and milk are being cooked in the same pot together.
It's not being cooked though.
Of course, Yetzirah did bo. Big time. Otherwise, I don't suggest you eat this short.
Is meat and milk, is the issue of meat and milk applied to non-kosher meat?
No, but this is kosher. Everything is kosher.
You thought it wasn't.
But Lemaise, it's kosher.
But is the pot actually cooking? It's being
Sure,
done.
sure. Would you want to eat cholent, which was in a
it's not
not yet edible pot for 24 hours? I would suggest strongly stay away. I don't know what your stomach is going to react to it. Stay away.
It was cooked already. He's eating it up. Sure.
But right now, when you're pouring milk into the meat and they're continuously being cooking together, you are cooking meat and milk together. How can you tell me you're not?
It was almond.
I'm sorry?
Almond.
Then you don't have a shaila. You're running away from the shaila, and I want to bring you back to the shaila.
This person was so in the halacha that his mother's house is not kosher, there. On top of that, she did something against his will. Bichlal Avshav was ready to kill her. So this is like, this is
Did he cook meat and milk together or not?
mentally is crazy.
Could be. But did he cook meat and milk together or not?
Yes.
No.
He become a kamabati somehow?
It was joking.
You take a whole glass of milk and you pour it. There is no kama. Bati, the first drop comes in and is nullifying. The second drop comes in. No. The entire thing goes in. It's more than 1/60th. There is no nullifying in the majority.
This for example, if someone is walking with the milk by mistake, he trips and the milk falls in the cholent. Is he doing that there or not?
He is cooking meat and milk together. And this was not shogeg. He took a glass of milk from the fridge and ensured that no one will eat this. Why can't this be called cooking meat and milk together? Dioisa.
I forget the pasuk, but kol hakoles, he's not.
Not a pasuk. At the Shabbos daf kufay, one who gets angry, it's as if keilu ayved avodah zarah.
He doesn't lose his.
By the way, in Sefer Hasidim, Simen Tav Shin Chaf Vav, I believe, it says one who gets angry can forget his Torah. So it's not good to get angry even just for that. Don't want to forget my Torah.
So he forgot his Torah basically. Can you say that?
So he forgot. But Lemaisa, wasn't he cooking meat and milk together?
We're trying to make Shalom Bayit.
I'm asking if the Avera Dioraisa was done. You're giving him a leeway, a way out to say, listen, he was shogeg, he forgot. But didn't he cook meat and milk together?
The meat was cooked. Sorry.
Yeah.
The process of cooking is taking meat and cooking it in a liquid. Right? So the meat was already cooked. He added the liquid afterwards. So the meat is not actually being cooked. It's a mixture here, but the meat is not cooked in milk.
So you're advocating cheeseburgers? You're advocating for cheeseburgers?
When are you opening your shop?
You say again, Bishulach Bishu. In the time of Reb Samson Raphael Hirsch, there was a shaila on the chocolate in Berlin. A shaila about the kashrus. And some were afraid that there are meat and milk in the chocolate. And the only way to figure it out, back then at least, was to melt the chocolate, and then you'll be able to find out what the ingredients are. Take it to the lab and find out. But when you melt the chocolate, what are you doing? If there is milk and meat together, you're cooking, you can't do that. Reb Samson Raphael Hirsch and Reb Meir Shapira, the founder of the Daf Yomi, said, no go, can't do that. Lo teva shel gdi b'chalev imo, you can't do that. Comes the young Doivev Meisharim, Chelek Aleph Simen Lamed, the Chabinerov, and said, I think you can do it. Shh. Who gave him permission? The Torah says, Lo teva shel gdi b'chalev imo, you can't cook meat and milk together. And he says you can. Why? The Kesef Mishneh in Hilchos Tumas Mes, Perek Aleph, Halacha Beis, says, the reason the Torah said don't cook meat and milk together is because the Torah doesn't want you to come and ultimately eat it. So here, when I'm cooking it, in order to refrain from eating, if I'm going to find out there are ingredients here that I'm not allowed to eat, I'm going to say stay away. I'm cooking it not chas v'shalom to come to eat it, exactly the opposite. So when the Torah says don't eat, don't cook in order to eat, and I'm cooking to do the reverse in order to make sure that I don't eat, if it's something that I'm not allowed to, so lechora, you'll be able to cook it. A tremendous, tremendous chiddush. Where is he getting it from? There's a Gemara in Pesachim Daf Yud Aleph. If you forgot to do b'dikas chametz before Pesach, middle of Chol HaMoed, you remember, I never did b'dikas chametz. Can you do b'dikas chametz now?
Yes.
You should. Why are you not afraid you're going to come to eat the chametz? You're going to play around with chametz, you're going to find chametz, and the entire year you don't separate from it, it's not an isu. So why aren't you afraid that you're going to come to eat the chametz? So the Gemara says, if I'm going now to do b'dikas chametz in order to find the chametz and to burn it, why do I have to worry that I'm going to come to eat it? In other words, if the whole purpose of the checking is to eliminate the chametz, isn't it similar? If the whole purpose of the cooking is in order to find out if it's kosher or not kosher, and if it's not kosher, I'm going to say to the people, stay away. The lab came back with the results, this is not kosher. Lichoya says the Doivev Meisharim, you'll be able to cook the meat and milk together, if there is any in the chocolate, in order to find out that you're not allowed to eat it.
What's the proof that it's bringing and stopped after eating?
A little louder.
Huh?
A little louder.
So what's the proof that it's bringing that it's dafka that you're cooking for eating? Where is it bringing that? Because it's any type of...
Kesef Mishneh decided in Hilchos Tumas Mes that is the reason. Kesef Mishneh. The Doivev Meisharim is using the Kesef Mishneh. It's a tremendous chiddush. But there's a greater chiddush. The chiddush here is that you know what we did? We're darshanin Tama Deka. We're saying, oh, wait a second. I understand the reason for the mitzvah, so it doesn't apply. Who says you can do this? It's a machlokes, conceptual machlokes throughout Shas between Reb Yehuda and Reb Shimon. Reb Yehuda says, the Torah says something, that's it. Can you tell me the reason? And if the reason you don't like the reason, so you change the mitzvah? Reb Shimon says no. And Reb Shimon sometimes darshans time adeka, and he says, oh, I understand the reason for this mitzvah. And if the reason doesn't apply, the mitzvah doesn't apply. For example, Shita Mekubetzes in Daf Tzadi in Bab Metzia, Tzadi Amud Aleph. The Gemara says, the Torah says, Lo tachasom shor bedisho. Don't muzzle your animal. The shor is working in the field, don't muzzle it. Why? It wants to eat. It's working. It's plowing, whatever it does, and it wants to eat. It causes tremendous tzar to the behemoth to be able to see the food and not to eat it. Don't do it. Says the Gemara, what happens if the shor has diarrhea? And it's dangerous for it. It's not healthy for it to continue eating. Are you allowed to muzzle it? Yeah. Excuse me? Why are you allowed to? The Torah says, Lo tachasom shor bedisho. Don't. Period. Finished. And you're saying, yeah, look, the Torah says don't do it because it's terrible for the animal. Here, it will be worse for the animal not to muzzle it. And therefore you're allowed to. Who gave you permission? What you're doing, in essence, is darshan tama deka. Who gave you permission to do this? The Shita Mekubetzes brings the Ramban. In the Ramban, and there's another proof, Bab Metzia Kuf Tesvav. The Torah says in Pashat Kiseitze. If an almana, a widow, comes to you and borrows money, can you take from her garment to guarantee the loan? Can you take it from her?
Back in line. Even back in line.
Lo tachavol beged almana. From an almana, the Torah says no good. Says Reb Shimon, well, it depends. It depends who the almana is. If she's poor, don't do it. If she's rich, you can. What's the chiluk? What's the difference? If she is poor, so you're going to have to come back every night and give her pajamas. You're going to have to come back in the morning if you took her daily clothing, her suit, and give it back to her. And the neighbors are going to see a guy coming every single night and every single morning and say, what's up with this widow? Her neighbors are going to start talking. Very not nice words about her. Don't do it. Says Reb Shimon, if she is rich, she doesn't need that extra garment. Amen, there's no problem. What is Reb Shimon doing here? Dashin time of the car. He just says, no, when the Torah says, Lo tachavol beged almana, you can't do this, period. Says the Shita Mekubetzes, back in Bab Metzia Daf Tzadik, even according to Reb Yehuda, who says, no, you can't do Dashin time of the car, when it comes to the show, to muzzle the animal, he will agree. Because here it's so clear that the reason is for the health of the animal, and not to cause it tsar, but here it's healthier for the animal, it's less tsar for it to not eat. And therefore it's clear, it's as if the Torah wrote the reason. So sometimes we're able to say, even though lo darshin taima dekar, we don't give reasons to mitzvahs, here we do. The Ramban says it's as if the reason is actually in the Torah. And therefore it's no problem to say, you can put the muzzle, you can muzzle the animal's mouth. The Chazon Ish writes the same thing in Shvius Siman Zayin. He's talking about the reason for matnos anim, for meiser, and he says, it's so pashut, it's as if the Torah wrote it. So sometimes we're willing to do it. So since, based on the Kesef Mishneh, the meaning of the words, lo tevashel, don't cook, is in order for you not to come to eat it. And here, what I'm trying to do is to avoid eating it. It's the same thing. Back to our guy, to our husband, what did he do? He put the milk in, why? In order to make sure nobody eats it. So isn't it the same like the Doviv Meisharim wants to allow to cook the meat and milk, the chocolate, to make sure that if there is ingredients of meat and milk, stay away, and it's allowed. So basically, based on that, here too, when he's cooking the meat and milk together, he is not doing an Isur D'Oraisa. He is making sure, because he thinks that it's not kosher, you're not allowed to eat this, so he's saying to people, stay away. Here, I'm going to find a way to show you. So Lichoira, based on this Doviv Meisharim, will reduce it from what he did on the D'Oraisa level, and will say to the woman, this is not a D'Oraisa anymore. A tremendous, tremendous chiddush. What about Bal Tashchis? Bal Tashchis. You're taking a nice, good pot of chunt and you're wrecking it for everybody. Is it Bal Tashchis? It's not Bal Tashchis. He thinks it's an Isur. He thinks you're not allowed to eat it. So he's fixing it. He's ensuring people stay away from what he thinks is not kosher. Raya to the Davar. Shabbos Dav Kuf Chaf Tes Amud Aleph. Rabbah did some bloodletting. In yesteryears, common practice was a very healthy practice. Today, when you donate blood, highly recommended. It's the same idea. It creates new blood. It rejuvenates your circulation. Very, very healthy practice. Not every day, every so often. I think they allow it once in 3 months today. So Rabbah did some bloodletting. And then, he was very, very cold. So they burnt a bench to heat him up. Abaye comes to him and says, aren't you worried about Bal Tashchis? And Rabbah says, no. The Bal Tashchis of my body is more important to me than this bench. So anything that you do for any good purpose is not considered Bal Tashchis. He did it for a good purpose, in his crooked way of thinking. And therefore he did not transgress Bal Tashchis Mid'oraisa.
Is that a contradiction with he was Makalka?
No. The Mekalkel is in order to save people from sinning. So in his way, in his crooked way of thinking, he's saving the world. He is saving them, so it's not Bal Tashchis. Bal Tashchis is when you take something and you destroy it for no good purpose. Here there is a purpose.
But we took care of Bishul B'Shabbos, we said Mekalkel.
Mekalkel. He was Mekalkel as well, but for a purpose. If you kill the animal, if you take something which works and you throw it down, but for a reason, for a purpose, when he was Mekalkel the bench, he burnt it. No more bench! But he did it for a purpose. To heat up. To heat himself up, to feel a little more comfortable, because it was more important to him, his body, than a bench. So he's Mekalkel but he's doing it for a purpose. So there is no Baal Tashis. It's the same thing. They go along. This Mekalkel and this Baal Tashis together.
We used Kilkel to be matir before.
Not to be matir, to reduce it from a deoraisa to something else. Here the same idea. We're saying it's not Baal Tashis. Baal Tashis when you're doing things for no purpose, when you're destroying things. He destroys something here, but for a good purpose in his crooked mind. So to sum it up, in order to create Shalom Bayit, we have to display tremendous acrobatics in halacha, and to be unbelievably flexible in order to restore peace in the house. I think we just did that. We showed unbelievable acrobatics. We bent the halacha and twisted it all kinds of ways just to make sure the wife is going to come back. She was appeased. She was willing to go back because we proved to her this is not necessarily 3 averos deoraisa, but the root for what he did comes from anger. And the root for anger is gaiva. And this husband has to do tshuva, big time, and learn a lot of Mesilas Yesharim, and Ochos Tzadikim, and Pele Yoetz, all the good svarim that talk about gaiva and about anger. How important it is to remember when one gets angry, not to respond, not to retaliate. The Gemara says, in Yom Chav Gimel Amud Aleph, Gitin Daf Lamed Vav, Hane'elavin ve'einan oilvim, Shomim cherpasan ve'einan meshivin. People who hear their shame and they don't respond. Somebody embarrasses them and they don't answer back. They are called the Oy Havav Ketzes Hashemesh Bigvura. So they are lovers of HaKadosh Baruch who loves them. How important it is. There's an unbelievable Imayemis on this. The Imayemis says, wait a second. Look what it says here. Hane'elavin ve'einan oilvin. Those who hear their embarrassment and they don't answer. Shomim cherpasam ve'einam meshivim alehem hakasuv oimer ve'oyhavav kitzes hashemesh bigvura. So they are great people. The person who actually heard his shame. What about the big Rebbe? He has a lot of Hasidim. The Rebbe doesn't respond. He was embarrassed. He doesn't answer back. But the Pasuk says ve'oyhavav. Those who love him is Hasidim. They should go and fight kitzes hashemesh bigvura. So they should go out into the battle to fight the honor of the Rebbe. Cute. Don't have to apply it. Shalom Bayit. What should one do if his wife doesn't listen to him? He feels she doesn't listen to him. The wife feels, my husband doesn't listen to me. Is there a Neitzer? Who told you? Baruch Daf Vav Amud Beis, the Gemara says, a person who has Yiras Shamayim, his words will be heard. So instead of pointing the finger and blaming her or him, he doesn't listen to me. My kids don't listen to me. My friends don't listen to me. Look inward and say, maybe I have to work on my Yiras Shamayim. Because Kol Adam, that's the language of the Gemara. Kol Adam sheyesh bo Yiras Shamayim. Anyone who has Yiras Shamayim, his words will be heard. So the more you work on yourself and your Yiras Shamayim, more your words will be heard. As opposed to that, the Gemara in Baba Basra, Tzadiches Amud Aleph, Soita Mem Zayin says, a person who is arrogant, even his household members will not listen to him. So they go hand in hand together. If you feel no one's listening to me, so you got to work on your own midas. Don't try to fix others. Fix yourself. Stay away from arrogance. Work more on Yiras Shamayim, and suddenly you will see people will start listening to you.
Can't we bring a question on that from the Gemara? That was a famous story with Gemara. I don't remember with Amara that his wife used to always do the opposite of what he said.
Rav Chia, Tevam Osamer Gimel, the bottom.
Yiras Shamayim, there's a question about that.
Chazal also say something in Kiddushin Daf Lamed Aleph. Every rule has an exception. And Chazal say from the exception it proves the rule. So here is the exception that proves the rule. The Rishonim have a question. Why is it that one is not allowed to marry his sister? Lichayla. It would be great. If you marry your sister, you're never going to argue. Where are we going for Pesach? Last year we went to your parents. Again, we have to go to them. Next Shabbos. You always argue. Come from the same background. Same upbringing. Same values. Same flavors that your mother cooked for you. It reduces so much potential for arguments. Why did the Torah say you can't marry your sister? And the Rishonim say it's because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants you to break your midos. if you're going to marry your sister, you're not going to have to work so much on your midas because there's not a lot of potential for arguments. You know her, you like her, she likes you, you have the same taste. There's less things to argue about. There's less of a chance to work on your midos, and that's what it's all about. That's what marriage is all about. To work on your own midos, to break them, to polish them, to improve them, to better them. And that's why I think if one has a problem with people don't listen to me, his wife doesn't listen, her husband doesn't listen, work on yourself. That's what it's all about. Polish yourself, the arrogance, the yiras shamayim, and then suddenly people will start listening. I was once hosted by an older couple. I was in New York for Shabbos, very old couple. It's only this old couple and myself. And Shabbos lunch, they started arguing. Oof, they're arguing. And I felt very uncomfortable. At one point, the wife looks at her husband and she says to him, Al, you have the right to be wrong. And that stopped the argument immediately. I think it's so clever. It's true. You have the right to be wrong. Why is it that when you're arguing with a chavusa, you're arguing with your friend, it's fine, you argue. But when you're arguing with your spouse, it creates such a fight. Why doesn't she have the right to be wrong just like your chavusa has the right to be wrong, and then you hug him and everything's fine? So we all have the right to be wrong, and that creates shalom bayis.
A woman's always right.
Except when she's not. Shalom bayis is such an explosive thing, especially Friday, 5 minutes before Shabbos, right? Everybody knows. So why don't we daven for it? Shmoneh Esrei, which is really 19 brachos. We daven for everything you want. Refuah, wisdom, parnasa, everything. Why don't we, or do we ever daven for Shalom Bayis?
Shalom. The last bracha.
Sim Shalom Aleinu between us and our enemies. Does it say Shalom Bayis here? Why don't we daven, or do we? Do we ever daven for Shalom Bayis? Doesn't it bother you? Every couple needs it. What's that? Where do we say ben ish leishto? Some skip it. Shmoneh Esrei, davening in front of Ribono Shel Olam. Why don't you ask for it? You ask for refuah there. You don't rely on other places when you mention refuah. You ask for wisdom. You ask for parnasa. Shalom bayis. No, I don't need it. Is there a couple that doesn't need shalom bayis? Many times I go to the big Mekubal of Gabriel Rabinowitz. The couples come in with shaylas. Shalom bayis. He says to the couple, how long are you married? So, 20 years. He says, I've been working on my shalom bayis for 50 years already. Is there a couple that doesn't need shalom bayis? The answer is we daven for it every single day in the Shmoneh Esrei. That's how we end the Shmoneh Esrei 3 times a day. V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tihiyeh. My soul should be like dust to all. That is the greatest segula for Shalom Bayis. Did you ever see that you're walking on dirt and the dirt looks at you and says, excuse me, why are you stepping on me? Never. If in fact you apply this and you say, V'nafshi ke'afar lakol tihiyeh, lakol includes your wife as well, that's the greatest segula for Shalom Bayis. And that is anava. You know, there was an avrech that got married. He doesn't speak to his wife. She gives him breakfast, he says thank you, and he leaves. He comes back for lunch, she gives him lunch, it's very tasty, and he leaves. In the evening, says good night. She's very upset. She thought something is wrong with her. She goes to her father. He says, listen, my new chassan, he doesn't speak to me. What did I do wrong? The father goes over to this guy and he says, what's wrong with my daughter? How come you don't speak to her? He says, what do you mean? It's a Mishnah. Pirkei Avos. What does it say there? Don't speak to a woman. And we have a rule. Stam Mishnah, halacha ke'oisa Mishnah. We have a rule. When there's no argument in the Mishnah, halacha follows that Mishnah. When there's an argument in the Mishnah, we know. Different rules, how to paskin. Who is the one who's arguing? Yachid, Verabim, we have rules. But when there's a Mishnah with no argument, no different opinion, we paskin like that Mishnah. So if the Mishnah says, Altar be'sicha im ha'isha, I'm just using this Mishnah, and that's that's the way I live. I do what halacha states. The father didn't know what to do with this. He went to the Rav. And they go together, And the Rav says, so why don't you speak to your wife? And he says, Rebbe, it's a Mishnah. Chazal say, Stam Mishnah, halacha ki oisa Mishnah. And the Mishnah says, I shouldn't speak to her too much. So the Rav says to him, yeah, but you forgot another rule. Yevamos Mem Beis. The Gemara says, Stam Mishnah, you're right, halacha ki oisa Mishnah. But Mishnah ve'achar kach machloikes, en oisa, en halacha ki oisa Mishnah. When there's a machloikes, we don't pass like that Mishnah. Here, your Stam Mishnah is causing a machloikes. Mimenu, we don't pass like the Stam Mishnah. Start speaking to your wife. Abai said, let's finish with a shaila about Inyana de Yoima. There's a soldier that comes back from battle, 2 months in Aza. Baruch Hashem, he was Mekayim the mitzvah of Macho Timche Zecher Amalek. He did it behidu. Midoraisa midirabanon. Baruch Hashem, gewaldik. But he comes back and he said, I shot many terrorists and killed them. Siyata Dishmaya. I saw that they're coming to kill me. I applied. Haba lehorgecha, hashkem lehorgo. You have to kill them first. But there was one incident where I'm not sure that I was supposed to shoot and kill. There was a guy who raised his arms, and I'm not sure he was a terrorist. Now I'm thinking about it. I feel terrible. Can't sleep at night. I think I took somebody's life who was innocent. I think he raised his arm. Could be that he had a white flag there. It's difficult to know. It's a time of war. We were very nervous. We were scared. Many people did aim guns at us. But I think today that I'm analyzing what happened there, I think that it could be that I took someone's life that I shouldn't have. Do I need atonement for this Maisa? Aboisai, what do you say? No. That's it? No? Okay. What's that?
What do we do when we go to war?
We try to kill the enemies. You try to kill innocent people?
They eliminate children, they eliminate wives. Everything.
Do I try to eliminate children and wives and kids? I try very hard not to.
Today.
What does it say in Scripture?
When they would go to war, they would kill everybody.
You mean about Amalek?
It's Amalek.
Who told you?
They want to eliminate Jews.
He came with his ID and says, I'm Mr. Amalek. Amalek is unique. There's a command, you should eliminate the entire Amalek. But when it's somebody not Amalek and you don't have a Navi telling you to do this, you try to kill those who try to kill you, the soldiers, the enemies, the terrorists. Why want to touch wives and kids who are potentially innocent? When we go to war, we don't try to kill them. We only try to kill those who are trying to kill us.
If you're in a fighter jet and you're blowing a missile from, 100,000 feet across the ground, you tell everyone to disperse. And you don't know you're going to do whether.
But you tell them ahead of time. If they didn't listen, it's their problem. Here, I think I saw this guy raising his hands, and yet I shot. I was nervous. Do you need atonement?
He needs tshuva. It's tshuva.
Self-defense.
He needs tshuva. What kind of tshuva, tikkunei tshuva do you want to give him? 50 push-ups in the morning, mesilas yesharim twice a day. What do you want to give him? Does he need tshuva?
It wasn't self-defense. I heard a story many years ago, a Jew in London, apparently, when he served in the First World War, and he got left behind in the trench when the rest of his unit moved on or whatever, and he saw a German soldier advancing towards him. So he took his bayonet and he stabbed the German soldier and killed him. As the German soldier was dying, the German soldier said, Kriya Shema. So that Jew felt terrible for himself, and for the rest of his life, according to his story, he put so much salt, put a lot of salt on the food he ate, so he'd get no pleasure from whatever he ate.
Did the rabbi told him to do this? I mean, it's a nice story. Who said he did it based on the rabbi's instruction?
I don't believe he did
We
it.
need sources.
I don't believe he did it on a rabbi's instruction. He did it.
So how can we use it as, proof for what we need?
I'm just saying it was like...
Beautiful story. I need a raya.
Self-defense. It's self-defense.
But who says he's right for feeling bad? Maybe you should feel bad. I don't know. I need a raya. That's exactly my question. No problem. He says tshuva. He says, Ad sheyavo hashlishi v'yachia b'neihem. Who's going to be the courageous shlishi?
I don't know if it's connected to this or not. The same time, guy said that the Marat might have made a mistake and took the wrong miriam, right? So
Daled.
Someone that should not have been killed, but we don't see that they did any teshuvah for this after that.
This is Malach HaMavis making a mistake.
Right.
You want him to do tshuva? Ashamnu bagadnu gazalnu? Or maybe he does. Who knows? Don't bring me a raya from a malach. Bring me a raya from people. David HaMelech, before he dies, he warns his son Shlomo, I want you to build Beis HaMikdash. And he explains, you know why I didn't build Beis HaMikdash? And David HaMelech says, Vayihi alai dvar Hashem leimo. Hashem spoke to me and he said, Dam larov shafachta, you spilled a lot of blood. Umilchamos gedolos asisa, you fought great wars. Therefore, lotivne bais lishmi, you cannot build my house. Ki damim rabim shafachta arza lefanai. It's a pasuk in Divrei Yamim Aleph, Perek Chav Beis, pasuk Ches. You spilled a lot of blood. You can't build my house. Says the Radak, what, you think David HaMelech just went and killed anyone around? The Radak explains. When the pasuk says you spilled a lot of blood, because in a war, some of the blood that he spilled was dam nikim, innocent people. And even though he didn't intend to, and they were from the country of the enemies, he was trying to fight them. But lemaise, the way of a war is that innocent people die. And you're allowed to do this. But the house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so sensitive to Kedusha that you can't have any drop of blood in your hands if you're going to build my house. Since the language of the Radak is so beautiful, since he spilled some blood, HaKadosh Baruch Hu prevented him from building the Beis HaMikdash. Listen to a language of the Radak, because the Beis HaMikdash is intended for Shalom, for peace, Kaparas avon, and to atone for one's sins, Ateres tefillah. The crown of tefillah in this house, blood can't come in here. So David HaMelech in his wars killed innocent people. And sometimes it's unavoidable. And it's allowed. And you can't be medactic at the time of war. But for a house of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, it's different. The Maharal writes similarly in Gur Aryeh, in Bereshis Lamed Daled. Shimon and Levi killed the entire city of Shechem. Why? Because one is allowed to fight the nation that comes to fight you. And when you do, sometimes you'll kill innocent people. Just like HaKadosh Baruch Hu says, Tzarores HaMidyanim, kill the Midianites. Even though there will be people there who are innocent, but you go to war, you're allowed to. And therefore, when you have the enemy standing in front of you, it's very hard to calculate who is the good person here and who is the Rasha. Lechatchila, we have to prevent it, if we can. The language of the Sifri is Ki tikrav el ir leilachem aleya. Pasuk in Shoftim. If you come to war, the language of the Sifri is go to fight. Velo lehar'iva, velo lehatzmi'a, velo lehamita, mitas tachaluim. Can't try to starve the people. You can't try to cause them to be extremely thirsty if they're going to die. Don't cause them to die. Go to fight. Fight against the enemies. That's lechatchila. But in the middle of the war, you see from these sources, sometimes there will be people who are innocent who will die. So he does not need any tshuva. He doesn't need any atonement. But it could be that when Beis HaMikdash, we have to build Beis HaMikdash, they will tell him, sorry, you can't come. But anyways, it's not a problem. Because Rashi in Sukkah Mem Aleph, Rosh Hashanah Daf Lamed, Toyses in Shavuos Daf Tes Vav Amud Beis say, the third Beis HaMikdash is going to come down from Shemayim. You're not going to have to build it. The third Beis HaMikdash will come down already. HaKadosh Baruch Hu is going to bring it down. Pasuk says, we say it in Nachem, in Tisha B'Av, Ata Hashem be'esh hitzata uve'esh ata asid livnoisa. You put the house on fire and you, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, will bring it down with a wall of fire surrounding it. Gemor in Baba Kama Daf Samech Mele. We have no problem with this guy. Yimitza Hashem. He should be able to fall asleep at night after we tell him that he doesn't need atonement, doesn't need tshuva, he did the right thing. One obviously should try to avoid it if possible, but it's very hard to be medactic in that in war. אחינו כל בית ישראל הנסונים בצר ובשיב העומדים בין בים ובין ביבשה ובין מתחת ליבשה in the tunnels. המקום ירחם עליהם ויוצאים מצר לרווחה מאפילה לאור משובד לגולה השתה בעגלו בזמן קורי ונוי מר אמן.